Welcome to Sox's Nightmare Survival Guide, where I, Soxla, explain how to overcome different scenarios you can encounter in Phasmophobia's hardest difficulty, Nightmare. In this guide, I'll be going over what you need to do in order to figure out which ghost it is in this scenario, the scenario being having the following evidences: EMF level 5 and Fingerprints. Which gives you 4 ghosts to pick from: the Goryo, the Jinn, the Myling, and the Obake. And since you're on Nightmare, these are the only evidences you will be getting, and you won't obtain any more, and you won't be able to see your sanity. This means you have to resort to different tests to figure out which ghost it is. Before getting to the tests for each ghost, let's talk about today's sponsor, me. Yep, that's right, I'm going into business for myself. If you like what you see, please leave a like and subscribe, seeing as that less than 5% of the people are subscribed, and I don't know where to go with this line, so yeah, subscribe. Also, I stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/soxdie. Now for real, before we get into the test, let's talk about the basics of each of the ghosts. Of the 4 of these, the Goryo actually isn't possible, so we're going to rule it out immediately. Even though your journal shows Goryo as one of the 4 options, it cannot be a Goryo as Goryo is required of the DOTS projector on Nightmare, due to its unique evidence with it. So we will be moving on from the Goryo, but in case you are curious, they hunt at 50% sanity, have normal speed, normal interactions, and normal footstep sounds. The Jinn hunts at 50% sanity, has normal roaming speed during a hunt, but chases players faster due to its ability. The Jinn has normal interaction rates and normal footstep sounds. The Jinn cannot turn off the breaker. If the ghost turns off the breaker, you can immediately rule out a Jinn. You do need to be careful though, because the Jinn could flick lights on and inadvertently trip the breaker. You should also be careful of tripping the breaker yourself, as that might confuse you into thinking that the ghost is not a Jinn. The Jinn also has an ability that will lower the sanity of players nearby by 25%, and when it does this, it will leave an EMF reading at the breaker. Note the breaker will still be on when this happens. The Myling can hunt at 50% sanity, it has normal speed and interaction rates, but has very quiet footstep sounds. It also makes more ghost sounds on the parabolic microphone. This is considered its weakness in the journal, though I wouldn't call this conclusive when testing for sounds on the paramic. A Myling test will be pretty conclusive unless the house is small and the only hiding spot is in the center of the house. The Obake can hunt at 50% sanity, has normal speed, normal interaction rates, and normal footstep sounds. The Obake can shapeshift, which means it will sometimes leave special fingerprints. This also means fingerprints are a unique evidence for an Obake, so they will always have fingerprints on Nightmare. The Obake will sometimes leave a 6-finger fingerprint on doors and windows and a 2-finger fingerprint on light switches. They can also leave 5-finger fingerprints on keyboards and prison doors. The Obake has an ability where it will lower the remaining cooldown of each of the fingerprints on the map in half. Also, the Obake only has a 75% chance to leave fingerprints each time it does a fingerprint interaction. Have you been paying attention? You can't test for a Goryo, silly. We don't have dots as one of our evidences. Testing for a Jinn can be a bit tricky because it is dangerous. The Jinn has an ability where if the breaker is on, the Jinn's chasing speed during a hunt will be faster. As you can see, this is pretty dangerous due to if you get caught, you die. But to be fair, you will know what ghost it is. If you manage to live the hunt, and still are uncertain if it's a Jinn, turn off the breaker for the next hunt. If it seems slower when chasing while the breaker is off, it'll be a Jinn. There is another way to determine a Jinn, and that is with its sanity draining ability. If you think you might have a Jinn, leave an EMF reader at the breaker. If you hear it go off, that means either the Jinn used its ability, or the ghost turned off the breaker. The Jinn can't turn off the breaker, so if the breaker is off, it can't be a Jinn. The Jinn of the 3 ghosts you'll be testing for is definitely the most dangerous, as you need to be chased for you to be certain that it is a Jinn, unless you get the EMF reading on the breaker without the breaker being turned off. I recommend doing this test last, and definitely save smudge sticks so you don't get caught off guard. Luckily, turning off the breaker is something the Jinn can't do, and if the breaker turns off, you can immediately rule it out. Mylings are the only ghosts with quiet footsteps in the game at the moment, so that will be the basis of this test. You'll need to get hunted to do this test, and you might as well test for a Jinn while you're at it, so bring a smudge. The way to tell if it's a Myling is with its footsteps, so you'll want to set up a flashlight or some other electronic device near a hiding spot before you get hunted. This will be your Myling indicator, as the footsteps of a Myling can only be heard if the electronic equipment is being interfered with. Testing for a Myling isn't super dangerous unless it hunts from a really bad location, so I recommend bringing smudges just in case, and it may be worth at the store one where you set up your hiding spot. The scary part of this test is that if it's not a Myling, it's likely a Jinn, meaning it will have increased chasing speed. The reason I say it's likely a Jinn has to do with our last ghost. The Obake is the only ghost of the 3 that we're testing for that you can figure out what the ghost is before being hunted. This makes it the safest one to test for, as you will be safe from hunts till 50% sanity. An Obake test is more of a matter of patience and using UV light. The Obake can sometimes leave a special fingerprint instead of the usual ones. This is a dead giveaway in this scenario, as you can't have a mimic copying the Obake's ability. Use a UV light on each of the interactions that give fingerprints. This also helps in the fact that sometimes Obakes don't leave fingerprints. So if you get fingerprints on one door touch and don't see any on another door touch, it's easy to tell that it's an Obake. Another clue that it could be an Obake is that the fingerprints are lasting shorter than normal. Obakes have an ability to reduce the time on remaining fingerprints in half. So if fingerprints last shorter than normal, which is 2 minutes, it's an Obake. Of the 3 ghosts, it's easy to tell that the Obake is the safest and easiest to test for. You don't have to do any hunts to figure out what it is compared to the other 2 ghosts. Just look at every fingerprint you get, and if it seems like every interaction that gives fingerprints has given fingerprints, it's likely not an Obake. In ideal situations, you will want to do this test after getting both EMF level 5 and fingerprints, otherwise you might be wasting your time. To start out, in this scenario, you want to just check the fingerprints each time there's an interaction. This way we can either rule out an Obake, or we can guarantee that it is an Obake. Look for the special fingerprints, missing fingerprints, or fingerprints to disappear faster than normal. If you don't see any of these happening, it's likely not an Obake, which means it's either a Myling or a Jinn at this point. If you want, you can wait it out and see if the ghost either uses a Jinn ability, or if the breaker turns off. This will require some patience, and you should stay in the light to preserve your sanity. Do be careful, because if the Jinn is using its ability, it will lower your sanity by about 25% if you are near it, meaning you could get hunted and killed if you are careless. If the breaker turns off, rule out the Jinn, meaning the ghost is a Myling in this scenario. This also means you don't need a test for the Myling, as you've ruled out the other 2 could be. Though do keep in mind, just because any ghost besides the Jinn can turn off the breaker, doesn't mean they will. Also, be cautious of the ghost or yourself tripping the breaker. For the second test in this scenario, you will want to get hunted. You can test either the Jinn's chasing speed or the Myling's quiet footsteps. I'd recommend testing for Myling footsteps, as the normal footstep sounds would give away a Jinn in this scenario. Use a cursed object to either trigger a hunt or to get low sanity for a hunt to happen. You only need to be below 50% in this scenario. Once the hunt begins, go to your hiding spot and listen for footsteps while looking at your electronic equipment on the ground for interference. If you hear footsteps outside the interference range, it'll be a Jinn. Though, be careful if it's going between floors, as the interference will not occur over multiple floors. If you're doing the Jinn test, have it chase you, and once you have to smudge, run to your hiding spot and test for a Myling as well. Though, you will likely know if it's a Jinn or not at this point. You can also get hunted again, but with the breaker off, and see if it doesn't chase you as fast as before. The reason why I'm rating this scenario 3 stars out of 5 is just due to the fact that the Jinn can be a dangerous ghost. It can drop your sanity incredibly fast with its ability, which might make you think there's an early hunting ghost. Testing for a Jinn by having it hunt you is more dangerous than most ghosts, as it has a much higher chasing speed than normal ghosts. Testing for an Obake, though, definitely makes the scenario easier, as essentially you will either have an Obake or only 2 ghosts to test for, as well as the Goryo not being actually a part of the scenario, even though it says so in the journal. The Myling test is safer than testing for a Jinn, though you still have to be careful due to being hunted. Sometimes it can be tricky to rule out the Myling when you have a hiding spot near the stairs or the middle of the map. Overall, definitely one of the more balanced scenarios you can get on Nightmare difficulty. You can rule out the Goryo immediately due to its unique evidence. You can rule out the Obake quickly due to its ability. Then from there, you have to get hunted to distinguish the 2 remaining ghosts quickly, or you can wait it out and see if it does something that would rule out it being a Jinn, or if it does the Jinn's ability. If you do try to get hunted, you have to be a little bit careful in this scenario, which makes it a little bit of a risky option to take, just because you know the Jinn could be faster, can easily catch up to you, or the Myling could be very quiet and sneak up on you, but generally that won't happen too often. And with that, I hope that this helps you in case you are stuck in a scenario with these 4 ghosts. If in the future another ghost is added with these 2 pieces of evidence, I will update this video. The next video will be on EMF level 5 and freezing temperatures. Hey, if you made it this far, I really wanted to thank you for watching. I worked very hard on this content and just tried to piece something together that could be helpful for anyone who's trying to look into getting to Phasmophobia, or just Phasmophobia Nightmare, or whatever the case may be. For any skill level, I want them to be able to watch this and be like, yeah, I've learned something, or something could be handy in this guide. So if you like content like this, please leave a like and subscribe. You'll be able to see more content like this in the future. I'll be working on the EMF level 5 and freezing temps, as I mentioned earlier. All the footage you saw here today in this video is from my stream, which you can find at twitch.tv/socksty. I try to stream every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes I go a little bit later, sometimes I go a little earlier. Kind of just depends what is going on that day. So if you're interested in watching me play the game or just maybe learning more things about the game, you can come check out my stream at twitch.tv/Sockseye. I will be streaming. Usually I don't stream too much on the weekends, but this will be coming up on a weekend day. So if you do find this interesting, maybe I'll be streaming tonight. If not, you can catch my stream Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, so overall, thank you guys again so much for watching. It means the world to me. And I will see you guys in the next video.